script is with me when I wake up, when I take a shower, it's on the stool. When I'm eating dinner, it's on the table. When I'm watching TV, I mute and fuck with it while the commercials are on. And then I'll watch a movie a little bit and I'll cut and I'll do the script again. I'll take a shower and I'll do the script all the way until I end up going to sleep. And I do that for every day until it's time to film. The script is with me when I go to the store. It's always in my pocket. I'm always unfolding it. I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm trying to say a line. And if I can't remember the word, I have to look it up before I can go back to sleep because I get frustrated. It's like, why isn't that word in my head? And sometimes words will escape you and you don't know why this word keeps escaping you. But I do my best to get that word. And sometimes it's true. I wake up in the middle of the night. I have the script next to me. I have to cut the lamp on and go, infiltrate. Why can't I fucking remember infiltrate?
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
The great Ron Cephas Jones died on August 19th at the age of 66. My friend William asked if I'm going to re-release Ron's episode from 2020, episode 116. And I usually don't like to put out episodes that have already been out. I don't like to re-release episodes. I always think, the episode is there if you want to listen to it. But when I listened back to Ron's episode, I forgot how amazing it was. And I just thought, I think I have to re-release this so it gets into people's feed and they give it another listen, because I learned so much more just in this last time listening. And of course, knowing that he was gone made it sadder, but it also really made me very happy that we got a chance to see this actor in his prime. So I think we need to be thankful for the gifts we've been given from Ron Cephas Jones, his amazing performances, and I'm thankful for the gift he gave us in this episode. This was recorded on June 29th, 2020, over Zoom. You can hear Ron's pet birds in the background in the beginning. It also has a few extra added minutes that I somehow left out on the first go round, and better mastered audio, so it sounds a little better. So here's Ron Cephas Jones on Back to One. Enjoy.
You've landed the role, you get the script, all the petitioning for the role is done. What is the first step that you take toward inhabiting that character?
As soon as you read the first lines of your character, as soon as you tie in him to the story, instantly I know. I just know from all the scripts that I've read and studied, I can tell you right from the jump, as soon as I read the first paragraph of that character, I know whether it's something or not. I already know if it's layered. I know if it's deep. I know if it's shallow. And the first thing I have to do is accept. See, because what I want every time is to have a great piece of writing, and that doesn't always happen, as you know. So more times than not, it'll fall short of what you really, really want to do, because I've done so many great characters over my years that that's always what I'm looking for. It's the standard that I want. And I understand that you can't always have that. It's just not a reality, You're going to get scripts that just don't hold up. So what you have to do, you have to find ways to compensate and find the goodness in the things in the script that you can highlight. So sometimes you can help make a script better by, like you said, not overdoing things. Sometimes you just have to resign yourself to the fact that that's all that's there. I can't make more of it than what's there, even though you want to, but you end up doing a disservice, and then what happens is you end up acting. So sometimes a director might see that and say, well, I think you need to do more. And I'll say, well, this is really not more to do. I can do this, but I mean, then I'm gonna feel like I'm acting. It's going to look like that. I mean, it's just not here in the script. Perhaps you could talk to the writer and maybe we can find out if there's more, but I can't, I would do me and you a disservice if I try to do more. It's just not there in the words. You're asking me to do this, but I wouldn't look over there and do that with my face. I mean, I wouldn't do that. So, I mean, that's not honest. Now, that's not to say that I won't. If you really want me to do it, I'll do it because I'm here to service you. You're my boss. You're the director. So if that's what you want, I'll do it. But I'll be hard pressed if I think that it's going to do me a disservice as well. So then I'll ask for an alternative. I'll say, well, is there something else we could find? Maybe I don't want to really do that. You want me to? Maybe we could explore something else. I'll try to be as collaborative as I can because I want us both to be happy. And that's what it's about, man. It's not about engaging. It's about degaging and trying to find a good answer to it. So initially, answer to your question is, I know when I first read the script. It's like I knew when I first read William, and I was at that point in my career where I had never really booked a significant role like that. I'd done television. I booked some roles prior to Luke Cage and Mr. Robot, which killed me off in the first season. I had a great character on that show. But this was my first major television network where I was going to come out to LA to actually work. I had never been to LA before, never booked a show out in LA. So I knew it was a big break when I read the script, but I also knew that I was perfect for the role. So if I didn't get it, at that point, it didn't really bother me. I was booking it from a very prestigious agency that I had booked tons of theater from, Bernie Telsey. So I knew they had confidence in me. And when I read William, I knew this man so well. I mean, there's so many men that I grew up with like him. I could name 10 men off the top of my head as soon as I read him that I grew up with. Uncles, guys in my neighborhood, my grandfather. There were elements of him in every male person, my father, that I knew of. And I was like, this guy is in me. I don't really have to search for him. I don't have to search. Sometimes I'll get characters like that. African-American men, black men who mirror the men that I grew up with. So those are the characters that I look for first when I read a script. The first thing I say is, do I know him? Do I know this man? And 9 times out of 10, I do. You know, my life has been fairly diverse, and I've traveled a lot, and I traveled a lot of cities, and you know, my family was initially from the South, so I have connections to the South as well as the West Coast and northern cities, eastern cities. So I have a wide range of African-American men, from criminals to doctors to lawyers that have been in my life. And I'm 63 now, so I feel like now I'm really at the top of my game, you know, so many experiences that I can bring to my work now. So that's what happened with William. And that's why I think that he's resonated so beautifully. And I'm hoping that I get a chance to do that with Truth Be Told, this new series with Octavia Spencer that they just picked up for a second season on Apple TV. The first season was rough. They didn't get the audience, but I was pleasingly surprised that they picked it up for a second season, which is going to give me an opportunity to play this leader of a motorcycle gang who's a loving father but has some issues. And I'm really excited about playing like a head of a black motorcycle gang from Oakland. I mean, you know, that's rife for some good stuff, man.
Because that just got picked up for season 2, I want you to talk about this thing I heard you talk about once, which is like getting used to this idea with multiple season television work that you've been doing recently about gathering information about the character through the episodes rather than all at one time, and how you had to get used to that. And I'm assuming you're used to that now, but how has that adjusted your work?
Well, the thing is about this show, This Is Us, was that I had to live the character in the way that they wrote it, because they never tell you if he's going to die or not. So being a person with cancer, living the character was like living a person with cancer. You didn't know when your day was coming. So every day I would come to work, I didn't know if it was going to be my last day or not. They never told me, and they never hinted. So
That's great.
I had to actually play him that way until I.
It helped your work then.
It helped my work because I had to actually feel like, is this the day? Is this the episode? And even when I got the Memphis episode, it was very late. It was almost like maybe the day before we went to travel or something that I got the script. I didn't really know at first. I thought it was going to be an episode where we went down to meet my family and introduce Randall to part of his family. And then I read on and found out, oh shit, this is the day, you know. And at first you get it's a very disheartening feeling because part of you as an actor feels like that's another job that's going to go by. And I'm not going to have a job again. But realizing how the way they wrote it, and Dan reassured me that he said, you know, we write in flashbacks, Ron. So just because he's going away now doesn't mean he goes away in the script of the stories, which was very helpful and helped me out a lot. So I knew that at least I was going to be working for some more. And I didn't realize I'd be working for another 3 years on the show. They kept bringing him back in flashbacks, sometimes small, sometimes in a big way. So that's what happened with that. I mean, it was like living it each episode. You just didn't know. And so it kept me in the reality of William's life and not Ron's life, you know? Ron's life was, oh man, I'm gonna lose a job. I don't wanna leave. I think it's too soon. Let me hang around and have more time with the daughters. Let me be more of a mentor and a teacher. Let me be more a part of Randall's kids' lives. I thought there was so much story left there that they could explore by letting William have a relationship with the daughters, but it just never happened. And the other character was never flushed out, his relationship with Jesse. They never flushed that out. They hinted it, and I'm not sure why. Dan never really gave you why, and I never really asked him why. I said to him why in a way that, why do you think you need to do that at this point? And he said, well, it's just something that we like to explore. So I was like, fine. My thing was like, whatever you introduce, I can make it work. I'm that type of actor, you know. No politics came into it, and no social beliefs. You have to disassociate yourself with those kind of things sometimes when you're an actor. Your job is to do what's in the script, and you're not the writer. So you can make it, like I said, have opinions and things, but in the end, you have to try to make the writing work. And so I was like, well, introduce it, and then we'll move from there. And I'll act accordingly. I'll act in the way that William would act if he was to start a relationship with this. And that would be something of him being lonely and knowing that he's going to die and trying maybe to explore something that he's never explored before. They had hints of it in a barroom scene when he was young, where he hinted looking at a group of men at one time, but you never really knew if that's the way they were going. And I didn't know really why. And, you know, I just needed Dan to assure me that he had an idea and a reason through William. Why would William do that? And so I had to find an answer to that. The answer was that he's dying and he's lonely, and he wanted to do something that he had never done before he died. Explore this friendship that turned more into an intimate thing. And we never really know how intimate it was. You never see them in bed together or anything like that. It could have been a platonic relationship. But there was two men that needed each other, and they met at a meeting, and that happens where you can be attached to another man or person just for the sheer fact that you know that they care about you. Mm-hmm. And you want to be around them because they care. And that was my reason for doing it. It was like it had to be more than just sexual. It can't be just some sexual relationship that William comes up with. He's not that type of cat, man. I think it's deeper than that. And so let's start with that and let everything else fall into place. Let's start with a real relationship, not a surface relationship. But let's start with a real relationship. You meet another person in a meeting, and they say the things that you're saying because you're both recovering. You're both trying to hold on to the last vestige of life and you decide to let's do it together.
Don't you think that at a certain point, the writer's room should really incorporate the actor who's been playing this role for years into the creative process? You know this guy more than some of these writers that might be coming on the show. You know what I mean? Like the idea of the actor actually not literally writing, but them just consulting with you because you've breathed life into this guy.
Well, I must say that that's one of the benefits of working with Dan Fogelman. His office is open 24/7, and he always made that possible for us. So anytime we wanted to talk with him or the writers about something, he made it clear that we were a part of that. And there were oftentimes, they'd have readings of the script prior to. I wasn't always privy to that because I wasn't always in all the episodes, but they have readings of the episodes prior to them shooting it. And you can ask any questions that you want. And even in between, if you need to go to his office, you could sit down with him and say, look, I'm uncomfortable with this, or I think that this scene needs this, or I'm feeling this way. So that is the one thing that I can vouch for Dan Fogelman. I can't say about anybody else because I haven't worked with too many directors like that, but he made it clear right from day one that his office was always open and that we could always come in and talk with him. We could watch the episodes there if we wanted to. And express how we felt about it. He'd even set up viewings for us. Prior to the episode airing, he would call in and say, let's watch the episode. And then even if something wasn't right, he'd do an edit before they'd show it. And the other thing is that you don't have control over, and that's the editing. Sometimes you do a scene, man, and the best part of the scene gets cut and it's on the floor and you're watching, you go, what the fuck? Why did they do that? It's like, man, it drives you crazy, man. But that's editing, and that has a lot to do with business, money, and time. So sometimes your stuff just gets on the chopping board, purely not based on what you've done, but just purely based on the fact that they need to cut time. And you just happen to be the victim at that time, you know what I mean? So it's happened to me a few times, man, where some of my best stuff ends up on the floor. But 9 times out of 10, the good stuff is still there. A lot of actors work strictly artistically, but then you have many actors who have turned it into a craft. It's actually a building block. It's just like building a house or building. You have to have a foundation. You have to have the electrical pieces together. And also, it has to always be collaborative. You can't act on your own. You do yourself a disservice if you don't collaborate with the writer and the director. It's a collaborative thing. Together, you come up with the story, but it has pieces. And the actor has to be directed in order to get the writer's vision. So everybody's trying to get the writer's vision of what the writer has seen in his characters and try to make the best of that. And at the same time, the writer gets gifts because he finds things in the character that the actor could find, and the director does also well. So I'm sure you've learned in interviewing so many actors that many work in a craft. And my biggest thing, Peter, believe me, is that I don't often get an opportunity to talk intensely with the director before we start working. And that does a disservice to the work. It's really about building a relationship so that you know how the actor works, and you can make adjustments as a director. So you can say, well, I got this guy, he clearly knows the character, so I'm just gonna let him loose, see what he brings me, and then make the adjustments I need to make along the way, or make suggestions. And then you try it a certain way together. So anytime you argue work, it should always be through the character. And I tell actors that all the time. If you have a problem, it's not because it's the director, it's because you're not communicating properly with the director. You should never argue on a personal basis. It should never be personal. It should always be about the character. So I might say, I feel like this character. I don't feel like Ron, or I feel like doing this. Like, that's not how I approach it. Never. I always approach it through the character. Well, I feel like William, or I feel like Roger feels like this or should do that, but how do you feel about me doing this? What if Roger, not Ron, but Roger, the character, always argue or
Make your case.
Make your case. I learned that a lot from Philip Seymour Hoffman. He was my mentor for many years, and it was a turning point in my career when I worked with him, because it was at that point that I realized this craft was it was a craft as well as an art, and it was a lot more serious than I had ever taken it before. And there were elements that were missing in my performance because of that. And once I made those adjustments and worked with him, my level of performance shifted to a whole nother level. And it wasn't until then that writers wanted to start to work with me. Writers would come up to me and say, I want to write something for you, because they saw that there was another element to my performance that just wasn't there before. And many actors don't have it. And it's that ability to take your study to a whole nother level.
Ron, I have 6 words written down. I want to say 3 of them to you right now, and I want you to tell me what they mean to you, because it's about what you're talking about. And then I'll say the other 3 at the end. These 3 words are, you are enough.
I don't know how you got that, Peter, but that's the thing that Phil told me when it shifted my thinking. He told me, I was doing a play called Jesus Hopped the A Train, Stephen Adly Gilda's play. I was playing a serial killer who was very charming and had taken to the Bible. So he was this charming, effervescent, articulate serial killer. And the way he would talk, just very nonchalantly, you would almost fall in love with him, even knowing that he had been a serial killer, until he started to describe some of the things that he had done. And then you felt appalled by the fact that you liked him. So it wasn't just the fact that you didn't like him, but you started not to like yourself for liking him. And I started out by trying to play a serial killer. And Phil was like, wrong. He was like, let's stop right now. He was like, you have to give me you. You have to show me that you could be a serial killer. He was like, Ron, we all could be serial killers. We all have that in us. So if one human being can have it, that means that you could have it too. It's just that you didn't have the elements growing up to make it full and real. But so he was like, we have to start with you. And he was like, you are enough. And it had a profound effect on me, because it took me away from acting and brought me into what my abilities are as a human being to do, the things that I'm capable of doing, which is also love and also hate. So he's like, that part of you makes you the bad guy, and the part that loves makes you a good guy. So it's like, it's simple as that. Now, how deep and how horrible you want to delve into your own psyche is up to you. He was like, but we as humans have the ability to do everything that is humanly possible that has been done in the history of mankind. Even when Cain slew his brother Abel, he brought up these biblical characters. He brought up Greek mythology. He brought up African mythology. So he took me back to the whole idea of human experience. What is the human experience? What is the human capable of? How far can he love, and how deep can he hate? And in between that, you'll find every character in history of time. You'll find that it starts with human behavior. That's when he said to me, because I started at one point, there was this angry scene. And so he was in a cage. So like an animal, I started to shake the cage. And he said, from this point on, I don't want you to ever touch that fucking cage. He was like, all the energy you let out in shaking that fucking cage. He's like, you're not a gorilla. You're not in a fucking zoo. He was like, you're in a cage. Why would you shake the cage? All that energy you just lost. direct that energy to who you're talking to. So I had all these other things, and he kept saying, you are enough. And it wasn't until that point that I start to act human behavior, find the behavior in the character through the writer. And those are the questions that you have to ask. Why a human being would do what they do. And once you answer those questions, you can flush out a character.
But this just sounds like it's such a gigantic paradigm shift from what we normally think acting is, or, you know, like you said, you went in there thinking, I have to get into this serial killer, like as if it's something else. So how big of a gap was that for you to learn at that time?
What I found out was that's what's really difficult about acting. It's not acting, it's revealing what's in you. And that can be very scary. When I realized that I had the capability of being a serial killer, and you actually realize it and then start to ingest it and live it, it's very scary. Nobody wants to admit that. Do you know what I mean? No one wants to say, well, you know, I'm just doing a character. It's really not. It's doing human behavior that you are capable of. It's just that you have morals, you have standards that you grew up with, that you understand psychologically that you won't go across boundaries. But that doesn't mean that you don't have the capability of crossing those boundaries. And it could be anything that could trigger that. It could be a loss of life. It could be someone's death that triggers behavior. And then all of a sudden, you know, you say, man, he hasn't been the same since, you know, his brother passed, or he hasn't been the same since he got back from the war. That's behavior. Human behavior can shift, and it turns regular people into drug addicts. It turns grandmothers into drug addicts. When they can't stop using their medication, their behavior changes because now they're addicted to this medication that the doctor ordered for them. So they didn't turn out to be a drug addict. Your grandmother who's 76 years old is addicted to hydrocortisone. It's because, you know, she took these pills too much in the wrong way. Her behavior changed. So it's really about Phil made that I think that's why he's, in my opinion, one of the greatest actors I've ever worked with and ever saw on film, because his shit was about behavior. And he really showed you human behavior, man, and how he could shift and really tap into his own behavior. He told me about a play that he was doing one time called, I think it was called Fucking A or something like that. Yeah. And it was a scene where he had to get down and actually put his nose in another man's asshole. It was this weird fucking scene, man. We had to actually open the guy's ass and his nose there or something. And he was saying how it was just one of those things where he had to, it was like he had to do it in order to make the shit real. And just the way that he described it, he was like, unpleasant, yes, but a part of what this behavior was. And so he was like, and if you're in the behavior, you're in it. So it will never bother you because you know that you're behaving in a way that the character needs to behave to tell the story. So there's still the idea that you're still doing something that's not you. You don't lose focus on the fact that it's a play. You don't lose focus on the fact that it is a film. Some actors absorb themselves to the point where they want you to behave around them all the time. And it's not about that, man. It's like, that's your thing. I'm going to behave the way I need to behave. And if you're in the area, I'm not going to adjust my behavior because you want me to, you know, react to you a certain way as an actor. So you're going to take up my time with your character. He was like, that's to me is selfish. So if you want to do that whenever you want to, but don't expect me to help you with that by misbehaving in the way I need to behave because I'm around you. But at the same time, understand that there's a reality to it so that you don't hurt another actor. So that doesn't give you license to just do something because you're in it behaviorally, you know? Just because I'm an angry serial killer doesn't mean that I have to behave that way around you when we're having coffee or having a sandwich, you know what I mean? He's like, understand where to detach and where you have to attach, you know? So understand the reality of it so that you keep your sanity as well. And that's what it is. It's from going from sanity to insanity. And we all have that ability to do insane things. Sometimes we do them and don't even realize we're doing them, you know. Or we say things that are insane because we feel hurt or frustrated. So we blurt out something that we normally wouldn't do. And then we realize, man, I have to apologize for what I just did. And we do that all the time as human behavior. I can't believe I said that to Carol at dinner the other day. I feel really bad about it. You think I should call her and apologize? Or fuck her, I'm not going to call her and apologize. She said that, so I said this. That's about human behavior. We flip-flop all the time. You know, it's about making those adjustments. And that's what we do as humans. And that's what I try to capture. I try to capture human behavior. And since I did that, working with Phil, my ability to love the craft more, to study more, he also taught me how to analyze a script and break a script down, all the way to the fact where sometimes it feels like a grammar class again. He had us identifying adjectives and nouns, pronouns, compound sentences, where action verbs were, how to use action verbs and nouns, also tonality, like a musician or a horn player, how to put tone and pitch into your words so that you can variate tone and pitch to create mood. Like a poet, you can emphasize certain alphabets like P's and TH's, and you can put tone to them, which will affect the viewer. So sometimes phrases sound musical, and other times they sound like a marching band, and other times they sound like jazz, and other times they sound like classical texts. So you can shift from Shakespeare to Molière to Ionesco to August Wilson to Eugene O'Neill to Tennessee Williams, all have tone. Each writer has a different tone. So say August Wilson has a distinct tone. It's very bluesy. He writes about African-American history that's attached directly to Africa. So there's a drum beat and there's a tone to his language. Tennessee Williams has a Southern Louisiana sort of iced tea on the porch, lemonade type, crass, deep passion. So it has sort of a drawl to a Tennessee Williams, and it lulls you in, and it makes you feel like you're doing a lemonade, and then it has that crass sort of passionate, dangerous love that's attached to it. Eugene O'Neill has that sort of Irish tone. It's almost like a bagpipe sometimes you can hear in his writing. So it gets very intense, man. There's so many things that you can do with language, especially if you've got a good a writer that knows how to put sentences together like Tennessee Williams or Eugene O'Neill or August Wilson. That's why so many great stage actors want to do Shakespeare and Molière and August Wilson and Tennessee Williams in particular, because they're so distinct in tonality and rhythm. They're very attached to music. And so when you get a film script, which is very little less, as well as a television script, I think that's why William in This Is Us resonated so much, because all those elements were put into him. And you didn't see a lot, but he's one of the most memorable characters on that show because of all those elements studied that I put into that character. And you'll hear all those elements when you watch it. There's a tone to William, a sound to him, and it makes people long for him because there's a pitch and a tone. So when they hear his voice, they get relaxed. It relaxes you because I put this tone, this pitch to it, this sort of easy, Wilson bluesy type of way that you just kind of fall in love with his voice as well as his character, you know?
Can you help me with something? I want to go back to the LAByrinth people, because I've interviewed David Zayas, Paul Calderone. Paul Calderone said something to me that got me started thinking about this, and I can't wrap my arms around it. And then David Zayas said something similar. And I think it's a thing that maybe Phil started. Like I heard you mention something like this. It's just the style, but it's about rhythm. It's about the idea of how important rhythm is in acting. And for some reason, I don't want it to be true, because the idea of focusing on rhythm in order to get into the scene, like if the idea that you're not catching on because the rhythm is off, and then once you're on rhythm, then you can do it. It seems very musical to me. It seems very outside of what I want it to be. But I want someone to just explain this to me a little bit more. And I think you know what I'm talking about here, right? I mean, how the importance of rhythm.
Peter, it's not rhythm as in musical rhythm. So let's make that distinction. It's a different rhythm. Like, for instance, when I listen to you talk, you have a distinct rhythm. There is a cadence and a rhythm in the way you speak. That's what makes you distinctly you. Now, if you listen to yourself, or I listen to you for a long time, I can find that rhythm. And I can sound like you. My rhythm can sound like Peter. So everyone has their own rhythm. Everyone has their own drum. You see, everyone has their own beat that they walk to. If I watch you walk, I can tap into the way you walk. There's a rhythm to the way you walk, and there's a consistency to the way you will move your hands and arms when you walk. And it doesn't vary. That's Peter walking. It's like you know Peter down the block because of his walk. It's that rhythm. It's that kind of rhythm. It's not musical rhythm, although it can be if the language calls for it. But I think the rhythm that we're talking about is the rhythm of life, the rhythm of a person's life. There's a certain way a writer will have rhythm. Like Stephen Gerges writes in a way that you can't break his sentences up. They're full sentences. You know, it's like when you break the sentence up, you change the rhythm of what he's writing. He wrote it in a way that, you know, there's no period. And some actors decide, well, I'm just going to pause here because I feel like pausing. And Stephen will go, there's no pause there. So you might say, Sally went down to the store to get a loaf of bread. She'll be back in about an hour. Instead of Sally, well, she went down the road, I guess, to get a loaf of bread, and she'll be back later. It's like, nah, man, Sally went down the road to get a loaf of bread. She'll be back a little later. You see what I mean?
Yes.
That's a rhythm to it, man. Like, you want to hear the whole thing. Sally went down to the store to get a loaf of bread. She'll be back in an hour. Not Sally, she went down to the store to get a loaf of bread, and she'll be back in an hour. That's what it means, man. That's what I'm saying about rhythm.
I totally get what you're saying, but I guess the trouble I would have, because I'm so caught up in mental things. Like I would focus on locking into the rhythm, on getting it, and then keeping doing it. If I'm doing a play, like, oh, I have to remember I have to get that rhythm down. You know, and doesn't that take you away from some other existence within the text?
No, I think as a director, you know, I mean, you have to trust your instinct, Peter. At that point, you know that you have a good actor, and if you hear it, you hear it, and if you don't, you don't. I mean, as long as you're still getting what you want to get, sometimes the rhythm will serve you, and sometimes you might want to break it up. It's okay to say, well, that sounds great. I don't know if I want the line whole like that. Let me hear it sound if you put a pause there. So you can break the rhythm up if you want. You're the director. So you can have it all. That's the beauty of the director. The actor is there to give it to you if you need it. You see what I mean? So I might say a line a certain way, and you'll say, well, I love the way you said that, but let's try putting a pause here. What I'm hearing and what I'm feeling is that he would put a pause there because he's thinking, well, maybe he's not saying it right, or maybe he's thinking something, and then you'll explore that. So my point is that you can have it all. You don't have to have one or the other. So when you hear it, if it feels good, then it feels good. And if you hear it and it doesn't feel right, then you mention it. Say, I don't know, something doesn't feel right about the way it sounds. And those are your directorial instincts. And that's what you bring to the work. Mm-hmm. That's the collaboration that you don't have to worry about, because you know that you can bring it up and collaborate. So you don't have to be the all in all. It's like together, you figure out what it is that you want. And that's how it should be. You should be able to have it all. And as a director, that's what you want. You want to know about it all so that if you need it, you can get it. And you can say, man, you really do a disservice to that line when you break it up like that. And you'll feel it, man. You'll feel it. You'll know. Like if you're directing a Tennessee Williams play, you tap into Tennessee Williams, man, and you just instinctively know that's not how the line is supposed to be said, man. This is Tennessee Williams. You gotta let that line lie, man, or you're doing it this Tennessee. You know what I mean? Because you've studied Tennessee and you know, you've read the play, you know it over and over, you've read it maybe 100 times, you're about to direct it, so you make your notes, you know, and you know what you want to get, and you envisioned it night after night, and then you get on rehearsal and you see if the actor is going to bring that vision to life. And if you've been hearing that line in your head all this time, that's what you want the actor to hear. So you'll say to the actor, man, this is what I want to hear out of this, man. So let it fly, you know, do this and let it fly, do your thing, but just know that it's Tennessee Williams and we want to have that feel for it. So it's about feeling too, and instinct. And as you grow as a director, that will grow too, your instinct to understand these things. And especially if you start to work with good actors, man, because that's beautiful. It's like when I work with good directors, it's like you're all both learning. You're learning off each other, man. And that's how it should be. It should always be collaborative. It should always be looking to learn something. That's why I always relent to the director. And it helps make me a better actor because it helps me to listen. Listen to what the director is saying and see if you can give the director what they need, because hopefully they will have done the work that I'm hoping that they've done. And they're more of an expert at this and know more about it than I do, because they've done their study. So if he wants it a certain way, obviously he studied it and this is the way he wants his vision because he's been talking to the writer. Now, if it's a dead writer, then we both know that. So if it's Tennessee Williams, we both should have that knowledge. And we both bring that knowledge to the script. It's going to be nothing but fucking beautiful because we're working easy, because we both understand what we want from Tennessee Williams or August Wilson or Eugene O'Neill or any number of new vibrating directors or writers that come along. You know, you want to study them, read, you want to hopefully be able to talk with them, especially new writers. You want to hopefully develop a relationship with the writer before you even get to the actors. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that always happens, but, you know, especially in a television setting, film, yes, because you have pre-production. So you might have a month or so that you're just working with the actors and the writer before you start filming. So certain things you lay down already, and you already are starting to collaborate. Television, it happens faster, so you don't always get that opportunity. You have to do it more on the fly, and each episode has a different director.
Right.
What's the hardest thing for me is when you have different directors. It's like, man, oh man, that's difficult. Because as soon as you tap into one director, you feel like really understands you. The next episode is a different director.
Yeah.
And that's really difficult too, man. That's one of the things that I had to learn how to make a major adjustment to. I would almost long for the other director because I'm so used to the theater and having one director. And so when I realized, oh shit, every episode is a different director, I would get anxious and I'd have almost like panic attacks, man, because I was so intense on creature of habit. And part of acting is being able to have a habit of tapping into your relationships that you build so that it's easier to speak. It's easier on your stomach and your heart doesn't beat so much when you think you have a question that you don't have to question yourself about. Well, that's a stupid question, or why would I ask him that? You should feel comfortable and free to ask anything you need to ask, man, even if it's the most simplest thing, like, where do I stand? Or am I on my marker? Do I have to be on this marker? Because you know that the camera made that adjustment, but you don't feel comfortable on that marker. Or why do I have to turn my head this way when it just feels uncomfortable? Yeah. And then if you turn your head this way, we got to shift the whole camera around. And so those little adjustments are frustrating as an actor, but I'm learning more about how to do that in a way that I don't lose my ability to bring to the work those little technical things that get in the way of being free and fluid, because television filming is not fluid, as you know. It's choppy. It's cut, readjust, cut, readjust, cut, wait, cut, act, cut, readjust, cut, do it again. So it's very choppy, and it's hard to stay consistent. Your focus has to really stay, at least for me. I can't run away. I can't run and grab a coffee in between. I can't do it because it takes me so much to get there. So I have to stay there and almost frozen until they say, let's go again, you know? So I can stay within that realm of what I'm feeling. And that's been the most difficult part about television acting. Even in film, you get a chance to have more stuff to stretch out. Film, television is a different medium, and I'm learning how to act more on quicker, get to those emotions quicker. And I do that by doing the homework. Hopefully, I always ask for the script as ASAP, you know, like days before. If they have it like 8 days before, I try to get it 8 days before. The more I have time to work on the script, the more consistent I'm going to be when I get on set, and the less frustrated I'm going to be about trying to find things. I take those 8 days and I do almost a 24/7 study. The script is with me when I wake up, when I take a shower, it's on the stool. When I'm eating dinner, it's on the table. When I'm watching TV, I mute and fuck with it while the commercials are on. And then I'll watch a movie a little bit and I'll cut and I'll do the script again. I'll take a shower and I'll do the script all the way until I end up going to sleep. And I do that for every day until it's time to film. The script is with me when I go to the store. It's always in my pocket. I'm always unfolding it. I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm trying to say a line, and if I can't remember the word, I have to look it up before I can go back to sleep, because I get frustrated. It's like, why isn't that word in my head? And sometimes words will escape you and you don't know why this word keeps escaping you. And you want them to say, maybe it's something about the word. Change this fucking word, man, because I can't seem to memorize the fucking thing. So there's something, must be something wrong with the word. But I do my best to get that word. And sometimes it's true. I wake up in the middle of the night. I have the script next to me. I have to cut the lamp on and go, infiltrate. Why can't I fucking remember infiltrate? And it was this word I remember in the last script, Looking for Alaska. I could not remember this fucking word, infiltrate. And I kept saying, virgulate, modulate, meditate, everything but infiltrate. And then maybe the last 2 days, it came to me when we started filming. And I flubbed it the first couple of times. And it wasn't until the second, third take that it started to become consistent. So those little brain farts happen with television, man. When they happen in the theater, you just bypass it. You can't stop. You know, so if the word doesn't come, you replace it with something else and you move on, and then you get it right the next night. So that's the difference between theaters. You have to improvise a lot. When those phrases don't come, and if it's Shakespeare, people are going to know you're paraphrasing, because people know to come to Shakespeare's word in the script. So as soon as you make one mistake, they'll point it out to you at the end of the show. You know you've missed that line, the line there that you didn't say. And you go, really? Yeah, thou art but for sure, thou kingdom will fall beyond the man's. Oh, shit, you're right. I didn't say that line? No, man, you didn't say that line. You know, so it gets that particular, man.
I reached out to your friend, Ruben Santiago Hudson. I said, give me a quote on Ron Cephas Jones. And he said, Ron is a good friend. He is a dynamite actor, great dad to his talented daughter, jazz aficionado, and a consummate student of the craft of acting. He has done everything from Shakespeare to Gerges to August Wilson and beyond. We worked together on Broadway when he covered the role of Solly Two Kings in August Wilson's Gem of the Ocean. We spent countless hours discussing our art, our families, our responsibilities as artists and advocates of maintaining the cultural integrity of work sacred to Black life.
I mean, I love Ruben. He's the same and more. You know, he's a griot and he's a dedicated preserver of the craft from an African American point of view also, which is which is what we need to constantly do also, is hold ourselves accountable and to always have that standard that we want to bring to the work, just like any other great actor, so.
And are you guys, when you guys get together, are you arguing about different things about acting? Are you helping each other? Are you like...
Ruben, for the lack of a better word, is positively cocky. So he's a very cocky, confident man. And so I love arguing with him about who knows more about jazz and who played with who. We get down to the point, like in 56, who was in the Miles band, or who was playing with Kenny Dorham that night when he was no, it wasn't him. I'm telling you, it was so-and-so. So we argue a lot about that, but we talk a lot about being fathers and raising children and the difficulty as it is, and the love that we have for our families. So I just love being around him, man. He's also been a mentor of mine. He was the first cat I saw do Richard V in the park. And it was a big inspiration for me, and I ended up doing Richard III at the Public as well. So, and that was a great experience.
Here are my final 3 words, and just whatever comes to you. Work begets work.
I believe that, man. That's why I'm not so worried about being here in Los Angeles and working. I feel confident at this point that my work will bring me work. So as long as I'm doing good work, I'll always be able to do good work. So it's one of the things I'm glad I got here at the time that I did. So I don't have to worry so much about that now. I can let that go and know that my work will bring me work. And so I can focus on the work and not on the audition or who's watching me or do I know so-and-so or can you call so-and-so or agent, managers type stuff like that. I can just focus on the work and hopefully other people will want to work with me because of it,
Ron Cephas Jones, thank you so much.
God bless you, Peter. Thank you very much, brother. Look forward to talking with you soon, man.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of The Gotham, formerly IFP. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.